Well, absolutely. Welcome to a wonderful episode of Yada Yada Boom. Robert and I were just chatting a smidge about life and what we were going to talk about today. Because as we talk about all the time, we really don't plan too much because we want this off the cuff and natural and authentic.
That's for
So,
sure.
hello, Robert.
Hello, Kate. And I've told you I'm almost through my cough. I went and did a hard 45-minute bike ride, so I have a little cough residual from that, but I'm doing
I'm
pretty well.
super excited
When do
that
you
you're
get
starting to get.
when do you get the sling
Yeah,
off?
it's hard to see here. So I tried to match my sling today, black on black. Hey, we're
Yeah.
matching, by the way,
And
black
I
on
do have
black. It's
black
Black
on,
Day.
but no sling.
But definitely a sling. I probably could take it off as I'm sitting here because, well, that would be a lot more comfortable. I am exactly 4 weeks and 1 day out from my rotator cuff slash bicep surgery. Um, for people that actually, it's so gross. I can't really lift my arm at all yet, but that's
Yeah,
pretty
it's still.
gross. It's still pretty bruised up and it's really atrophied very quickly.
That's
Um,
unfortunately the way it
surprising.
goes.
Oh, excuse me. Oh my
Good.
goodness. So yeah, I'm excited to get past these next couple of weeks. They had said this thing is for 6. When I go to PT tomorrow, they said we are going to be adding some things. So I hope at some point, someday, I can start to lift this arm because I am a little frustrated with the things that I am unable to accomplish. And
Yep.
it's major things like just being able to take care of my hair. I did just look how pretty. I just came from getting my hair done. So I'm
Ah,
feeling pretty darn
yeah, it looks
fantastic
good.
about that. But I have to pay to have my hair done. And tying a shoe I did for the first time today. I was able to kind of put my arm down in a way to tie my own shoe for the first time. So that was great. Um, but I would really like to be able to cook.
Yeah.
Cutting a vegetable is something I am not great at yet with my
Yeah.
left hand. I have done really well with my left hand up to this. So I'm going to squirrel off for a second. So I went to a birthday party this weekend and they had darts there. And I was just like, I want to see if I can throw darts with my left hand.
Yeah.
I am pretty darn good,
Ah,
like was winning against the people. And then random people were coming up saying, I want to see if I can win against you with your non-dominant hand. And I was still winning. It was great. So I'm a dart shark now or something. I don't know what you call that.
yeah. I don't
But
either.
anyway, so that's the fun of all of that.
So what we decided to do is get to know Kate better on this episode because frankly, when I decided that to breathe life back into this podcast concept, I needed a co-host. Kate's name popped into my head pretty quickly because of her energy and her passion, and we share some passions. But met Kate when I lived in Rockford, which started about 11 or 12 years ago. So I met Kate. Kate was a Mary Kay consultant. Amma was dabbling in Mary Kay. Kate would win some sort of pink boa quite a bit. They'd play fancy music, and I'd go see Amma win something occasionally. But Kate was usually winning something. Very upbeat, positive person. And then I would later, when we moved away from Rockford, Amma would stay connected with her through, I guess, Facebook. And there was this image of this person I didn't recognize, which was Kate, about half a body size, about half a body smaller, not half a body size, but half a body smaller. So what I've known about Kate is very focused on her weight, her nutritional health journey. But I don't know Kate when she was like 5 or whenever. So you grew up in the same town?
I did. So I truly grew up about 6 minutes across the river from where I currently live. Born and raised in Rockford, Illinois. My dad, cop, mom, teacher,
Yep.
and lived just, what I felt to be a very normal childhood in this
Right.
area. But of course, as you grow older, you start to recognize the differences between what your upbringing was, the things that kind of made you you. So I've done a lot of introspect on all those growing up years, um, but truly lived in a way where my father was working at the time. My mom was staying home with us kids, which we were very lucky to have.
Right.
And she ran a daycare, so there were kids in and out all the time. Um, I remember, lots of fun things. My sister and I would play together all of the time. We'd play grocery store.
Right.
My mom, my mom really was ready for a war. So if there was a war, we would have food
Ah,
in the basement. And we would just stack the basement stairs with all of the wonderful Duncan Hines cakes and all of the other things that she had down there, play
Right.
grocery store, and Barbies, lots of Barbies, Barbies. So those were those lovely little growing up years until my dad got into some pretty big accidents on the force and had a lot of surgery.
Oh,
So almost all of my childhood years past probably, gosh, I couldn't even tell you what age. I was pretty darn young when he started having the surgery. So most of our time was spent in hospitals,
oh, wow.
like a lot of time spent in hospitals. So he had, I think, 22 surgeries
Oh,
on his back and his neck,
that's a
um,
lot.
which is a lot. And at that time, of course, mom had been home up into that. So then she became the breadwinner. She went back out, started teaching again. Um, so our life was much different from a lot of my friends now that I'm older,
So this would have been in
now
the
that I understand.
1980s, I presume.
Yes, this was in the
Early
80s,
mid
early
80s.
80s. So I remember small little things like when I was younger, like we had a boat and we had a camper and we were going to move to this house, like the little farmette house.
Right.
And all of that changed very quickly when my dad got hurt. Um, so truly just remember so many blips of how sick he was after anesthesia. Those are very vivid memories of that. Um, Lots of casts and caring for. My mom, thankfully, was a CNA in her younger years before she became a teacher. So she cared for him a lot. And when she couldn't, we were past those types of duties. So one time my dad got a staph infection when they put the metal rods into his spine, and learning at a very young age how to care for an oozing wound.
Is that one of
Um,
those, you have to put one of those ropes in, antibiotics laced
it I
ropes?
remember something because the hole was in his back and he'd lay on, we call it the blue room. So he would lay on the bed in the blue room and I would have to clean it up and put the new dressing on.
Mm.
I was young. I really couldn't tell you how old I was. And then I do also remember a couple of times, which I mean, we're going to talk open and honestly and very authentic, but um, so he had rotator cuff surgery too. He had two on one arm and one on the other. I just had part of the rotator cuff surgery. He was not able to wipe himself
Yeah.
and was so embarrassed to ask me to please help him. And my life up to that, of course, like you go into that caregiver mode and it's no big deal. And I do remember him apologizing a few times after that about how sorry he was that I had to care for him like that. And
Yeah.
I didn't find it to be odd at all because you just do what you got to do, you know?
Do you think that those earlier years played a significant role in the fact that you care so much for other people and try to help them on their journeys in life? It may not be helping them clean themselves, but certainly
Right.
helping them to get a
Yeah.
lot healthier, because I know you struggled with any number of, and I don't know all the things you tried. My mom would be a Weight Watchers coach at one point because she was successful with that, but
Right.
she, for the last 50 years, has never really been able to keep the weight off. So I know you struggled with it, but it seems to me the stories you're telling me suggest that that imparted on you a real caring caregiver type of mentality.
You know, since we're talking about it and then you bring
Yeah.
that up, I'm like, huh, it absolutely probably shaped a lot of who I am as a core being, anticipating what somebody else needs without being asked.
Yeah.
I'm very observant of other people's behaviors, um, anticipating what they need, which I guess is more of a caregiver role. I think a lot of my independence and I guess confidence as a woman comes from watching my mom have to take over an entire household at, the blink of an eye when,
Right.
of course, she was raised where, stay at home moms, you take care of all of that kind of stuff when the man goes out and works. It's very 50s, 60s, 70s. Um, but having that role reversed where she was making the money and caregiving and, running a household. I think I get a lot of that from all of that and truly being a caring being. I think that truly comes from, I think, the way I was raised, my family.
Right.
I have a great family. Uh, but yeah, since we talk about that, I think so.
Yeah, so it's for me, I can't relate in personal experience. My family's younger, or at least never had those sorts of problems, where they needed care at that age in their life. I don't know how old was your father when he suffered through these surgeries?
Oh my gracious. So my parents waited 10 years before they even had us. So
Right.
they were in their mid 30s when my sister and I were born.
Yeah, so they were
Um,
a bit older.
so he's, yes, older than the other parents, maybe, probably very similar to what age group a lot of the parents are now, because it used to be
Right.
you had kids, right away, and now a lot of people are waiting. Um, so they were older than the other parents, which is why we really didn't do too much with the other parents because they were all 10 years younger.
Yeah.
Um, but gosh, that had to have started in his 40s, very
Yeah.
early 40s. Oh my gosh, which makes me,
Yeah.
wow, because I'm 47. I'm like, oh,
My grandmother was 40 when I was born. My mom was
okay.
20. I was just
Uh-huh.
curious. I was just curious.
Interesting.
But
So,
what I
I
was
get that.
getting at was in my family, uh, never knew my birth father. Met him on a telephone call once, but he had no rights. So they were estranged, divorced. He had paid no child support. He didn't want any rights, signed away his rights when I was a baby. And that was fine with me. And frankly, it's fine with me today. It is the way it is. Uh, my stepfather, big, chunky, he was a lineman on the championship football team in the 50s. My mom would struggle with her weight, my grandmother, her weight, my dad's side of the family, all larger people. He would be my stepdad, technically 430 pounds at his peak. My
Mhm.
sister struggled with weight, still struggles with weight and more with food. And she is the only one I can really relate to as a younger girl. I mean, she struggled with it by the time she was 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Were you also struggling with it?
Yes. So my dad also really struggled with his weight. As soon as those surgeries started, he was a pretty fit guy leading up to marriage.
Right.
My mother, amazing cook, and of course, caring for him. And then he was a cop. Okay.
Right.
So after the first few years, he started packing on the weight. It's what they did. They just pack on the weight. And
Right.
my dad was a big man. I know I remember him saying something about being 260, and then I remember it being in the 300s. Um, and he vacillated back and forth, which a lot of the amount of medications that he was on, how immobile he was for so long, because it
Sure.
was either the neck brace, the back, the leg casts. I mean, my gosh, this poor man. Um, and then, of course, when my mom went back to teaching, instead of making everything from the garden and homemade like she had up until that point, it was of that era where everything became easy and came out of a box.
Yeah.
So it became hamburger helper,
Yeah.
instant mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, Velveeta. God, Cheese Whiz. Do you remember Cheese Whiz?
Oh yeah. Put that on
Oh,
crackers. You can make like a little
put
flour
on
out of it.
toast. Oh my gosh. So yeah, we
That was a
started
pizza
eating
for
out
me.
of
Toaster oven, a
oh,
slice of bread, some cheese whiz, and
Cheese Whiz.
sometimes just ketchup, but
Oh my gosh,
usually some
that's
sort of a tomato sauce, and
we
then
didn't
some
even have a
oregano.
toaster oven. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the nutrition was not great, although it was following what everybody else was doing.
Yeah. Margarine was good for you
And I
in
did
those
take after
days.
my dad's side. Right. We had a lot of margarine. Like
Right.
everything became not so healthy. The vegetables became, frozen. Soup came out of a can rather than being homemade. It just became a
Right.
life of convenience. And I did start packing on the weight. Um, when I look back at pictures now, I'm like, wow, I really wasn't obese now that I look at kids these days,
Right.
but I was heavier than most. And
You were taller, I'm guessing, too, because you're
oh yes,
almost
yes.
my
And
height.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm a good 5'10". Well, I've shrunk a little. I was 5'11". Now I'm like 5'9 3/4. I think
Okay.
they measured me at last time. I'm shrinking. But I did struggle with weight probably starting, well, my mom used to make fun of me, and sorry to my mother
Oh,
if she's listening to this. She would still to this day, she thinks it's the funniest story ever that she used to be able to put my little butt cheeks in her one hand because I was so tiny. And
right.
then all of a sudden I wasn't.
Right.
And I think the biggest switch of time was by the time I got into the 5th grade. I do those pictures were pretty chunky monkey, Kate.
Yeah.
And that's when getting made fun of and things like that started. Um, which really did shape me mentally in a not so great place with my weight.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did struggle from then on, because then when you start in fifth, sixth grade, I was in special programming for the creative and performing arts. So we were at a special school where it was more like a middle school, high school. So the lunches that we all ate was, the rectangle pizza,
Hmm.
um,
Forgot about
and
that.
then
Yeah.
ice cream sandwiches, and then the warm chocolate chip cookies wrapped in cellophane or, saran wrap, um, garbage, absolute garbage that they would feed us. And my
Right.
weight that's when it skyrocketed. I remember I went back into seventh. So I moved schools from seventh and eighth grade, and I met back up with a lot of the kids that I had gone to grade school with, because I did go away to the special schools in fourth or fifth grade. So I met back up with one of my boyfriends from grade school. And I remember being in the cafeteria, and I was just like, "Hey, Justin." And he's just like, "Who are you?" And I was just like, "Katie." And he was just like, "Oh my gosh, you got so fat."
Oh, yeah.
So I remember that. Remember that. So I guess
Yeah.
yeah,
But
you're making me think of a lot of things.
how did it shape your confidence or your lack of confidence? Because again, I have really have one reference point, and my sister really lacked confidence, and it was tough on her, and I mocked her mercilessly, and I could come up with any number of ways to mock her weight or appearance. But and I think we talked about this, and she's forgiven me, but and
Yes,
I've forgiven myself. But anyway, how did it shape you in those ways? Because you seem ever since I've met you, and you were pretty, pretty heavy, relatively speaking,
very heavy
200
then. Yeah.
some pounds plus when I met
Mhm.
you when you were in Mary Kay, but
Yeah.
always just super confident and super outgoing. So was
Yes.
that Kate even as a chunkier 9,
Yes.
10 year old?
Yeah. I learned very young. I've always been, I don't think my personality has changed greatly. I've always been just that fun loving, get along with everybody kind of person. I could
Right.
literally make friends with anybody that I came into contact with. So I think that's probably just inherent of who I am as a person. But when I did get into those years where my weight really made me uncomfortable, I made up for how I felt about myself with being funny.
Yeah.
I used and I found the things that people liked about me, and I really took those up a notch, so that the inside of the way that I was feeling about myself wouldn't shine through. And I would, if I'm not in front of a mirror or somebody's not making fun of me, I probably could personify that I am the fun
Right.
person all the time. But as you go through those adolescent years and being made fun of by people, and like I had, it sounds so weird. I had a lot of boyfriends. I had a lot of boyfriends. I don't know what that was about until I reached the middle school, high school years. So my first boyfriend literally was in kindergarten. His name
Right.
was Brian. No, yeah, Brian. Brian Miller. That was his name.
Okay.
I turned him around 3 times on the reading carpet and gave him a smooch on the cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played house together.
Yep.
So when I hit those middle school years, the boyfriends kind of fell off and my confidence was not great.
Right.
Went pretty much through high school, not dating anybody, really just being myself, maybe cowering to some of, maybe hiding, I guess,
Yeah.
from how I really felt, and exuded that confidence and that positivity. I was something that I do, the natural leadership skills that come out of me, or maybe it's just I'm very outgoing. I don't know what you would call that, but I became a student leader in everything that I did. I was nominated by my teachers for something called peer mediation. I became parts of all the clubs that I possibly could. I played instruments, I sang, I danced, I did theater. Um, I truly was involved in everything. My poor mother was taking me to school at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and
Right.
then I'm getting home 9 o'clock at night because I am, my gosh, I'm sitting here thinking about this stuff. I was part of Key Club. So then I would go numerous times and work at nursing homes and lead bingo
So you're
with the,
describing it at a young age, you're describing somebody who's really high energy and very active, but still struggling with weight.
yeah,
So
horrible struggles with weight. And part of it was the nutrition. My parents did not understand nutrition at the time. Sorry, mama, but
most of us
they
didn't.
didn't know. And people still don't know. I
Yeah.
only learned because of what I've been through. Because what you think is healthy, we all went through the fat free stage.
Right.
Remember, everything fat free
Everything
is
fat
good for
free,
you.
loaded up with sugars and carbohydrates.
Gosh, awful for you. But here I am eating, all the sugar-free stuff, thinking that I'm healthy, wondering why I wasn't skinny.
Right.
Uh, so definitely high energy, always involved, always the leader in whatever it was. You saw me like by Mary Kay times, and wow, the amount of uncomfortable that I would feel standing at the front of the room, but I would teach every single class. I would help every single person. Yes, I won. I had the highest sales all the time. I won Miss Go Give every year until I finally
Right.
said, you guys need to vote for somebody else because I truly that's who I am. It's just who I am. I will change my life and my schedule because I can see what your need is and let me help you.
Right.
Let me be selfless and help you.
So I want to go back. I want to go back to something like your first real attempt to get your health in check and lose weight. But
Yeah.
I I will put up, like I said before, I haven't figured out Zoom and how to like split and share a screen. So it's right now. I'm afraid I'll just completely throw us off kilter on this Zoom session. One day I'll practice that. But there's something that, and you said I always have to get something in, and this is something I'm getting in, the wheel of privilege. What it shows is if you're in the dead center of the wheel of privilege, you are the most privileged. So males, white males, wealthy, cisgendered, college educated, you stay right in the middle of the wheel. It's just like darts, that's the bullseye.
Right.
Body weight, body appearance, being thin is in the wheel of privilege is right there in the center too. And it's one of the things that we talk about a lot of initiatives about fairness and equity and inclusion and belonging, but there, I don't believe there's any disability, like federal standards that protect against being discriminated because of body size. Yes,
Yeah.
you have to accommodate people on planes or things like this. But what I mean is in terms of hiring practices, I've been
Right.
horribly in the past, and it's something I've had to work on, horribly prejudiced against some people that are probably, I'd have to say, morbidly obese, really large. Um, because I just assume when you're heavy, you're lazy. That's was always my assumption. And here's Kate coming up through her life, always involved, always doing things. And yet I know there's people that would pass you up in
Yes.
any selection process simply because they figured, well, she's the chunky girl who's probably not that motivated. Your personality offset that, but a lot of people, at least in my younger days, I would say a lot of people couldn't look past that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to
If
put
you
that
were
out
to
there.
just, yeah. Yeah, it is definitely something because of course I was involved in the hiring process in some of my past life as well. And even though I was a larger person, I am very high energy. If you just get to talk to me, I would
Yeah,
usually, get the job.
right,
But when I was also narrow, even though I was a larger person, it is one of those things that you look at because there usually are some underlying something that will go on. And as a person that is trying to hire in, where you want people to be prompt, you want them to be showing up all of the time, you want them to be able to complete the day and not,
right,
it is an unconscious sometimes thought pattern
right,
that happens. Yours goes straight to lazy. Mine went straight to, are they physically able to be on their feet for 12 hours at a time?
right.
Because the jobs that I were hiring for, you had to be on your feet. You were
Ah,
not sitting down. And to me, walking into a high-end store where the employees are sitting down is not the
yeah,
type of look that we were going for. So we did stand all day long. Now, mind
right.
you, I was heavy myself, always dressed well. High-end suits, matching suits. I looked good
Ugly
for my
shoes,
very large
probably
size.
though, right? Ugly shoes.
Nope, I put the
You
cute
found
shoes
nice
on,
shoes
but
that were comfortable. I remember you saying something about
that's
shoes
funny.
once.
You
You
just said the
said,
word comfortable.
uh,
No, I wore shoes
women
that went with
women
the
don't
outfit
wear
that
comfortable
killed
shoes
me.
typically.
No, but going into work and coming home from work, I put on my ugly tennis shoes because I was excruciatingly in pain
Okay, maybe that's the
by the
story you
end of the
told
day.
me
So
before.
I wore the tennis shoes to work. Opening everything up or whatever took about an hour. So I was in the tennis shoes. And then right before it was time to be on for my 12 to 14-hour shift, I would wear the heels. The heels got shorter and shorter over time because they used to be
Right,
4 inch and then they were 3 and then they were 2. And then I was like, dear God. Um, and then as soon as those doors were locked, those shoes came off, the tennis shoes came back on. And by the time I was getting into my car, I was lifting my legs into the vehicle.
Yeah.
So maybe part of my, corporate side of looking at the business that I was running is, can that person keep up with me?
Yeah.
And what are their ailments going to be? And I will tell you, it is really unfortunate that we have that, but it is a definite unconscious thought pattern, or maybe it
Right.
is conscious for some of us.
Well, in that
So like
case,
that,
what you were
go
hiring
ahead.
for, you needed people that could
Yeah.
meet the physical demands of the job. But
Yes. And
jobs
then
I
of course,
typically hired for were office based or sales based. And I would often just immediately see a much heavier person and go right to the question of, do they have any energy? Are they lazy?
mhm. Well, I will tell you, now that you have met me and you've seen me at my heaviest and you've seen me at my most fit,
Right.
uh, people can have energy no matter what, but I will tell you that my health is extravagantly better than
Oh,
it
yeah.
was then, because I was always in pain. I was always like, the two forms of clothing that I owned 20 years ago: nice business suit, pajamas. Don't
Mm.
ask me to do anything that's not in suit or pajamas. Those were literally the only two things that I owned. That was
So,
it.
yeah, what's funny is it brings back a memory after my first divorce in the 80s. I dated this woman for a short time, and she was tall and thin and attractive, but shoulder pads and breast pads, barely ate. She was horribly skinny. So you might say, oh, look how thin and fit she is. She was horribly not fit. She wanted to go biking with me on a bike path, 3 miles, and my legs are hurting. It's like 3 miles on a flat path at almost no miles per hour. She just was obsessed with really not eating. I remember we went out to dinner once and she had chicken cordon bleu, and she about an eighth of it was eaten. And she said, thank you. That was good. I'm like, that was good. Oh yeah, I'm full. How can you possibly be full on like an eighth of a piece of that?
Well, she's
And she'd
starving herself.
complain
It's
about
very
how she
easy.
wanted to gain weight and so forth. So I've seen the
Yeah.
opposite too, but we probably are close to our 30-ish minute. But quickly run through your what you've tried and when you started to lose weight and become healthier.
Oh boy. So I tried from a very young age. I
How
think
young?
the very first diet that I went on was fourth or fifth grade.
Oh wow, that is
Um,
young.
so that is where I started to just limit the amount of food, because of course your brain pattern in a diet mentality is eat less, move more, because that is what you are told over and over and over again, not fuel your body for what it needs.
Yeah, not eat
Okay.
well.
So
Yeah,
not eat well. No, it's just eat
just
less
eat
and
less.
then whatever. So fifth grade was probably the very first one. My most memorable diet was out of 17 magazine, and that had to have been eighth grade, ninth grade, somewhere in there, where I remember sitting at my neighbor's house. I lived in an all Italian neighborhood. Food was piled on your plate. I'm not,
Classic
it's true.
stereotype.
Hey, ask any Italian. So you would take a bite and then more food would be
Right.
put on your plate for you. So I remember being at one of our dinners. They were like grandparents to me. I spent so much time there. And everybody is having whatever. And I was eating red beets because
Okay.
that's what the diet said. And then the next day you were supposed to eat a hot dog.
A hot dog.
I am not joking. It really happened. My mom's like, okay. And she helped me through that.
So that
Um, so that went well. No. By the time I was junior, senior, probably senior in high school, I was on the swim team all 4 years. Okay. Of all the sports to pick, let me put my body into something where it shows everything.
right. Hmm.
But my history teacher it must have been eighth grade. My eighth grade history teacher was the coach. And he's like, you are going to be on the swim team. I was like, okay. He was one of my biggest cheerleaders. So much that went into my life at that time. We could get into that too. That kind of shaped
Right.
my academic career and lack thereof after that year. But I was on the swim team. So by the time I made it to high school, I was very active, but I was going to diet again. And it did get to the point where I was eating baby food.
Baby food.
I know that
Okay.
sounds very strange, but when you are swimming competitively, anything heavy in your stomach, of course, makes you feel sick. And I learned that I was like, oh, baby food, great, very low calorie,
Easy to
suck it down. I
digest.
don't know, easy to
Yeah.
digest. And so we were eating baby food, and I was eating carrots, drinking Diet Coke, And Wednesday night youth groups, we would go to Beefaroo and I would allow myself, sorry, a junior cheddar for me.
Yep.
Okay. And that was my diet for a while.
Right.
And I was starving myself at that point because I couldn't understand why I couldn't be like the other girls.
So you lost some weight, but you couldn't maintain it.
Well, I lost some weight, but I wasn't healthy. So I
Well,
did
yeah.
get skinny. My doctor really apologizes.
Yeah.
So with hush, with losing that, losing that weight, I did gain a little bit more confidence in how I probably showed up in a room, because I did feel a little bit better about
Right.
myself. I remember size-wise, I was very happy at a size 12. I was really proud of myself for being
Right.
a size 12. So I was bigger than all of the other girls. I look back at those pictures now. The 12 of those years and the 12 of now are drastically
Okay, I'll take your
different
word on
in
that.
size. It is true. Women's clothing sizes have greatly changed over
Okay.
the years to accommodate our brains. So I did lose weight then. Then I went away to college. I gained the freshman 30 rather than the freshman 15 because I am
Right.
an overachiever. That was
That's
beer.
good.
Uh-huh. That was all beer weight, let's be
Okay.
real, and pizza.
Yeah.
Beer and pizza, but
And
otherwise I was eating grilled
ramen
chicken and
noodles,
salads.
maybe.
And ramen noodles and saltine crackers and peanut
Right.
butter. So I gained that weight. When I had moved back home, I was pretty chunky again. So that's when I really started in on the fad diets. I went to the doctor and, tried the pills. Goodness, just tried eating less, tried doing that kind of stuff that none of it works. My gosh, was it Herbalife? Where you take the
I
horse pill
I
vitamins.
know of Herbalife.
Um,
I don't know anything about it other than
oh, it
sort of
was,
a
we won't go into
sort
that.
of a
If there's
pyramid
anybody that
scheme possible thing.
it is, and now they're like, they got in trouble for what was in their stuff, and now they're trying
Ah,
to do it in smoothies. And oh, these are so healthy, and they have these little smoothie shops, and it's not good for you at all. So please don't
okay.
go there. Um, I tried. There's a shake program that I did, like
I remember shake
everything.
programs out there. Weight
I
Watchers.
can't remember the name of it. And then I did Weight Watchers 3 times. Okay,
Jenny
and
Craig's
with
a name I remember, but
Jenny Craig, I never did
okay.
because I thankfully never had to do Jenny Craig, I guess.
Okay.
But Weight Watchers I did 3 times, and I lost weight the first time with Weight Watchers, which is essentially eat whatever you want, but just count the points.
Yeah, it's just
Sorry, Weight Watchers, it's
points.
true.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant, and so I gained 90 pounds with Olivia, and then it didn't come off. And then I was very ill for the first year of her life, and the pounds just kept packing on. And I remember my mom, I was nursing, I was so sick, and she would bring me a glass of water and one of those huge Otis Spunkmeyer muffins.
Oh,
Okay, first of all, those things are freaking delicious.
yeah.
But they're what, 500 calories and probably 50 grams of carbohydrates. And I literally was sitting on my butt holding a newborn all day long, every day with migraines.
Yeah.
So my weight skyrocketed for that. Then I got on Weight Watchers again, lost the weight, about 60 pounds, I think, at that time, got pregnant again. Weight came back on. Like it was just kind of that yo-yo. And then I finally started to realize that starving myself towards skinny was not working. And then I did Suzanne Summers twice. That's a fun
I
methodology
don't know
there.
that one.
Okay, well, you pair certain foods. You don't eat this kind of food with this kind of food, and it's just so odd. But I did it more than once. My mom had done it, so she's like, "Oh, this works." I think my
Right.
sister did it too, because everybody does everything that everybody else does. And then numerous other random
But
fad
it must have
types of
been
things.
short, I say shortly, a few years after Andrew was born that you started the plan that you're still on now, right?
Yes. So he was born in 2011, and I started this program in August of 2016. So he was 5 years old.
Okay.
Well, he was 4.5
Yeah.
when I started. And I lost that 100 pounds in 8 months.
Yep.
I was petrified after I lost that weight because I had always gained it back. But halfway through the process, I really did realize the difference between a diet and health.
Right.
And then I became a coach, forced to be a coach for one of my friends who wanted to try the program, but only would do it if I was her coach.
Okay.
Very quickly realized within the first 20 people that this was so different. And I learned more about just not the program, but how people's brains work, that I really was meant to help people in this capacity. And I
Right.
could do it while taking care of my kids. And then of course, you look at me now, I'm actually better by a lot now than I was in December of 2016 when I lost that 100 pounds, because I did look really waif compared to
Yeah,
what I
I
look like
remember
now.
the very first pictures I saw of you. There were times, some of them you didn't look like a healthy lean or a
Right.
healthy
Because I had no
thin,
muscle mass, because I've
but
never exercised like
yeah, so
since high school.
I'm sure your weight is probably higher now because you've got mass that's packing it, it's denser in the same form. You probably got
It
10 or 12 pounds of muscle you didn't have then, but
So my body completely changed and morphed
did it?
when I started working out. The scale number at first went up, but then I started doing some different types of nutrition to follow alongside of becoming
Ah,
cut and gaining muscle. So yes, my inner body matrix has changed. So my fat content is lower. I'm in the athlete mode for that. My muscle mass is higher. My bone density has gotten better. I've done the DEXA scans. I, of course, have the
okay.
smart scale at home that gives me that. Weight wise, yeah, I'm up right now. Stupid surgery. Um, and most certainly I'm unable to do the level
Right.
of exercise that I was doing. But weight wise, I actually am almost the same as where I ended. I actually got even
Oh,
lower
that's
than
pretty
that
impressive.
while working out. Yeah.
Because I know that
Yeah.
I'm right now, I'm pushing. Well, I'm going to wrap up on this because I'm pretty sure the timer says it's time to be quiet.
Yeah. It
But
is.
um, my weight now is approaching, I've done the same program as you.
Right.
And I did ride my bike thousands and thousands of miles, and now I'm at 600 miles. So there is an element for me where if I just exercise a lot, I will lose weight most of the time.
Right.
But my eating's not on point the way it should be. My drinking alcohol is not on point the way it should be. Um,
Yeah.
so I know this, but I am at close to my heaviest, close to my heaviest ever. But I'm weighing in around 182 at 5'11". And the BMI index on my little phone app says I'm right on the edge
You're right on the cusp.
of
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't know if it's obese or what, but
It's
overweight. So
overweight. The
um,
yellow
it's
overweight.
kind of funny, because when people see me, they don't ever think that or say that. So the BMI thing to me is one of the stupid things we grew up with, one of those many stupid things we grew up with. But when I see you outside of shoulder surgery and I see some of the things you post on Facebook after the gym, your shoulders are more cut than mine. Your trapezius muscles bigger than mine. So I'm jealous
Freaking popping, baby. Yeah.
because I have to work really hard to get muscle mass. It's really hard for me, especially as I've gotten older. But I wanted to do this because I didn't know really any of that stuff. I knew your dad was a police officer, but I didn't know that he suffered through so many surgeries and how that transformed your mom's life and how that in some way or another shaped you. And I knew you said you did a lot of different things, but you just kind of shined a light on a good dozen different things, maybe, 15 or 20 efforts, but maybe 10 different programs or, or techniques that you've attempted through the years till one finally stuck.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And that has morphed as well. So, like, I know we're going to cut this here in a second, but it's interesting that you said the things that you have said, because the program that, like your wife has done or that I did to lose weight would not be the exact same as what you would want now, where you're noticing this creep of the scale. Nobody likes a creep.
right.
You're recognizing some habit patterns that you would like to work on. And I will tell you from experience over the last several years, starting to really understand nutrition and exercise and how do you change a body matrix. You are not too old to gain muscle mass. You are not too
No, no, I
old
know.
to get cut. It all comes down to nutrition and then the right type of exercise that allows you, because right now I just look like a atrophied bleh,
It's definitely
compared to,
harder than it used to be, but it's
it's
certainly not
definitely more
impossible.
difficult.
It's not
What you like to
impossible.
do is one of those things. There's so much cardio that goes into your biking that there would be some changes that we would make.
Right.
So if you did want to actually gain muscle mass, we would have to pull back on the things that bring you joy,
Yes.
believe it or not. So anyway,
Well,
I think that's a wonderful place for us to stop. I really appreciate you asking me so many questions. It allowed me to know me better. I never thought about much of that
well,
before.
those that watch this and check in on our podcast, which we have to find a way to increase the viewership and make it more interesting to them. But I think if they knew your story, they'd be really, really inspired. So
I
I
hope
think
so.
I think
I
that's
hope to be
important
that
to
for a lot
them.
of people. Yeah, I
So
did, because I know we're cutting this off, but the very last story that I'll leave you with is I was in a room full of new people this last weekend, and um, I just walk in and do my thing.
Right.
And one of now a friend came up to me probably an hour and a half or so after I had been there. And he's like, let me just ask you this. He's like, I just want to make sure you understand that's my wife right over there. So
Right.
please understand. Okay. We've had this conversation of getting hit on,
Right.
but so Howie, he comes over and he's just like, this is where I'm coming from. My wife is right over there, but I would really like to know, how is it that you have become you? Because I have never seen anybody walk into a room with more confidence and hold attention by an entire room before meeting you. And I was like, one of the nicest compliments
Yeah.
ever. And I was like, I don't know. I am
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
Uh, but having that conversation with him and telling him a bit of my story and how I grew up, and now he's, hopefully being an inspiration to those that I'm
Well,
around every single day of my life.
that's why I pegged
So
you as a podcast host, because I had podcast burnout on the Humpty Project, and we're now at our 12th recorded episode. And you inspired me to be incrementally better each time I'm on this. So if I get
I
nothing
love that.
else out of this, I'm really getting good at editing these things. And I have challenged myself to be incrementally better because like you saw, you revealed things about yourself today.
Yeah,
I was revealed many things on our last podcast.
it's
So
very true. So good. Well, thanks for thinking of me first when we started this. This brings me a lot of joy. So I
good.
appreciate you.
Well, you have a good rest of your evening, and I'm going to get
Yes.
back to work since I did my bike ride this afternoon, and I'm going to hydrate.
Excellent. All right, my
Okay.
friend. I'll see you
Take
next
care.
time.
Thanks, Katie.